We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live boxing ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live. It was all good just a week ago. Look, Jaron Ennis' last performance left more to be desired. I have a full-length breakdown on the channel, and it's obviously inspired others who were watching. Now, you look at boxing, when guys look impenetrable, pause, when they look unbeatable or very hard to beat, you don't really see people chomping at the bit to fight them. However, when you appear to be vulnerable, when there's flaws that are shown, a chink in the armor, if you will, then you see people all of a sudden getting new confidence, and that is exactly what's happened with Jaron Ennis. Oscar De La Hoya, since that Karen Chukadzeyan fight, he seems to have gotten courage and confidence in his fighter, Virgil Ortiz, fighting Ennis. And it looks like they are trying to get that done for February 2025. In a recent post, Oscar De La Hoya says, "Look who we found in Riyadh. Virgil Ortiz, the man that will beat Boots," referring to Jaron Ennis. Now, Oscar De La Hoya is in Riyadh for Latino Nights. He has a card. I guess Virgil Ortiz is, just wanted the trip down there to support the event. And now you see the level of confidence that Golden Boy has. What am I talking about? So I follow boxing. Obviously, I cover boxing, the best in the business, and it's not even close. I didn't really see this energy from Team Ortiz, specifically Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, prior to Jaron Ennis' last two performances. That's why it's very important and imperative even to keep your stock high in the sport of boxing, because guess what? Your ops are always watching. They're looking. Because have you ever seen a fighter who trash talks a lot, has a lot to say, outspoken, and then they get stopped or beat up or dropped? Immediately on social media, ops of that fighter, rivals of that fighter, will jump on and hop on and be like, aha, you got dropped, you suck, oh, you got beat. You know what I'm saying? So it shows you that people are, I'm not gonna say plotting, but they're waiting and they're watching, because they know immediately upon the result. Like literally after Jaron Chukadzeyan 2, Oscar De La Hoya immediately went to social media and said he wants to make the 5 versus 5, and he wants to include Virgil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis. Now, I think it's a very good fight. It's not like a set in stone because, Jaron Ennis struggled with Karen, that this indicates how this fight will play out. Because Virgil Ortiz, to be honest, he has his own skills, his own attributes, and he fights nothing like Karen Chukadzeyan. So you can't really make that comparison. Triangle theories don't work. You can't say, you look like this versus this guy, so this equates to this. Styles make fights. I will say this. Jaron Ennis, in my opinion, and this is what I had questions about, Jaron Ennis, it looked like his trajectory was better with Showtime. Like if he would have stuck with PBC Showtime. The decisions that are happening now, they really don't look like they are the right moves. I don't know how to explain it. Like the right move. Like for example, Jaron Ennis said he wanted to unify and stay at 147 to become undisputed. They put him in with Cody Crowley. They had a press conference. The fight gets canceled. Okay, freak accident. Doctors wouldn't approve Cody Crowley because of an eye injury, so he can't fight. But that is still a disappointment under Eddie Hearn's umbrella that the intended initial fight is no longer the fight. You're not fighting your mandatory, you're not fighting Cody Crowley. So they sub in a guy that Crawford already knocked out, David Avocado, right? And then Boots doesn't dazzle more than Crawford did, because Crawford had an in-ring knockout that was brutal versus Jaron Ennis was putting some fierce punches together, but he was also getting hit, and then it kind of retired in the corner. And I don't even know how much time Avanesian was really given to train, seeing that he was a late replacement, versus Crawford and David Avanesian had full camps. So you have that situation. Then they try to get allegedly a Brian Norman fight, and that fizzled out, didn't go anywhere. It was just a blame game, which Eddie Hearn does a lot, right? Point the finger for a failed fight not happening. Fans don't care. We just want to see the fights. We want to see the end results. Either you can get it done or you can't, right? So then they moved to a guy that Boots already beat, which was I guess is mandatory, Karen Chukadasian, which he gave him issue in the first fight, and then he flipped it, fought completely different in the rematch, and did better. Karen, I'm talking about, did better in the rematch and was tagging Boots. Now all of a sudden the floodgates are open. You got Golden Boy feeling positive about their chances with Virgil Ortiz and chirping, and you have other people in boxing. Like I've seen members of Team Crawford. They're like, man, y'all thought he could beat Bud. You know, he can't even fully beat Karen Chukadasian impressively. And again, this is why it's imperative to keep your stock high and make sure every time under the bright lights you perform, because this is what happens. Then you go from a boogeyman to like, okay, this guy's beatable. And then people start, depending on how bad the performance, people start looking at you as food. And that's what's happening. So to be honest, the reason why I said that Jaron Ennis with Eddie Hearn is look pretty cursed is the fight with Boots and Virgil Ortiz is a good fight. I would definitely watch the fight. I've wanted to see it for years. But the timing of the fight, if you look at it, I would say the timing and the setup actually benefits Virgil Ortiz. Here's why. And it's not like, oh, you know, some people say, oh, Boots has more skill than Virgil Ortiz. But the thing is, you can't let this game play you. You got to play the game. And I think fighters need to move smart. Like, for example, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I want you guys to feel me. Fighters fight. I get it. And a lot of guys have this bravado. Nobody can beat me, yada, yada, yada. But the thing is, you still got to play the game intelligently and not let someone set you up. Like, hey, I could beat this guy, but I can't necessarily beat this guy with the 2-week training camp, because then it's all about just like making weight and you don't even get time to train. So if you get that call 2 weeks before the fight, you have to determine how, hopefully you've managed your money or you have some money to the point where you don't have to just take anything, because they're already setting you up for a disadvantage. Like imagine getting a call to fight a guy like Canelo on his way up and you have 2 weeks to train. That's just not enough time, and they want him to win. So it's just your odds and the probability aren't that great. Now, the reason why I'm saying this with Boots is because since he teamed up with Eddie Hearn, it's been kind of disastrous. The only benefit is he's fighting at home, which he doesn't need to do. To build a star, you got to fight in other markets outside of where you're from. So I don't really look at that as like this huge. And then you look at his last fight with Karen, and people were leaving during his post-fight, and the crowd was insanely quiet, like they were extras in the movie A Quiet Place. It was just Karen had shut the crowd up. So that's not really of benefit in that situation to fight at home against an anticlimactic ending with David Avanesian, and then your fans are leaving like early and quiet throughout the fight. So it's like, did people really get their money's worth? Now the Virgil Ortiz fight is very dangerous, really, given the fact that Boots would be at a disadvantage. And trust me, I know some people are like, what do you mean a disadvantage? Hear me out. I always make it make sense. Virgil Ortiz has just underwent a fight with Sergey Boachuk, who is a big 54. And he did get dropped and he had issues in the fight, but he showed his grit. So as long as he got past that and he didn't get like knocked out or something like that, then I feel like That's a good learning lesson type of fight against a certified good fighter at 54, because Boachuk was coming off of beating Brian Mendoza very impressively and hurting him throughout. And like I said, he's a big 54. So now Virgil Ortiz has the advantage because Golden Boy has moved him how they wanted to. They put him in that with that guy who had got some kind of aneurysm and he got like a first round knockout. They put him in there with Delorme. So at this point, he's had a couple fights at 154. If I'm not mistaken, he's had 3. And then his most recent fight with Boachuk is the one where there's the most to gain, because now he's the WBC interim champion. Versus they're trying to make this fight like, oh, it's a major fight with Boots. Boots is coming from 147. He's saying he can't make the weight, but your opponent just got 2 tune-up fights, because the first 2 were definitely tune-ups, and then the Boachuk, which is a real fight, but that's good experience at the new weight class. They're talking about making this fight at 154. So Virgil Ortiz, in that sense, because he's acclimated, he has the advantage there. Boots got to just move up in weight and immediately, fight a top level fighter with power who showed he's pretty durable and coming off a performance where Boots looked insanely hittable. So it's funny how things change, because a year ago, before Boots was with Eddie Hearn, I was thinking Jaron Boots Ennis would beat Virgil Ortiz all the way, but boxing, you have to just keep paying attention. And now the way it's looking, the fight is looking more 50-50 to me, right? Whereas before, because Boots' performance and how he was looking, I was pretty easily favoring Boots. But now with this added disadvantage, I don't know, things have kind of evened up, because make no mistake about it, moving up in weight is a process. So you don't just move up in weight and you're God tier. You figure some things out. And I always recommend that a fighter acclimates to a division, get a fight or 2 before you do the big fight. Just like Andre Ward. Andre Ward I know him. He is an intelligent fighter inside and outside the ring. HBO tried to set him up the same way and put him straight in with Kovalev. He said, I'll fight Kovalev. I'll do a 2-fight deal, rematch clause, no problem. But give me 2 fights before that. And he did that. Sullivan Barrera and Alexander Brand. I was at all of those fights. Both Kovalev fights and both Andre Ward first fights at light heavyweight. That's how you should move. But with Turkey Al-Sheikh throwing around money and, just kind of musical chairs and trying to pick and choose fights that he wants versus necessarily you got to look at it. Turkey in Riyadh season, these are almost like toys to him, because he has money to throw around and he doesn't have a stable. So he just wants to see fights he wants to see, which is cool. But the downside is you don't really have any reason to care about the development of fighters. Like Jared Big Baby Anderson fighting Martin Bacoli was a dumb fight. It was a very dumb fight. Like I knew that would be problems because Bacoli's big, he's experienced, he took his loss to Michael Hunter and then he improved and came back. But when you're Turkey, you don't really care because you're not top ranked and you don't have to worry about rebuilding him or anything like that. And that's what I'm seeing here with Jaron Ennis. So credit to Golden Boy. If this fight happens next, they have put their fighter in if he's going to win it, they put him in the best possible position to win. Gave him some light touches, moved him into a tougher fight with Boachuk, and then, kind of the gold medal match that people would want would be against Virgil Ortiz. That is how you move a fighter, in my opinion, the smart way, right? Because it's called developing. I know fight fans, they want like killer after killer after killer after killer, but it's not realistic. And the more you do that, and if you lack the development, then you start seeing fighters who had potential to maybe be pay-per-view stars and pound for pound stars in the future. If you move them too crazy, then all that can go up in smoke and up in flames. And again, I'm going to watch the fight. I don't have a dog in the race. Virgil Ortiz is a good fighter. Jaron Ennis is a good fighter. I'm just talking about from a business and developmental perspective, Golden Boy has served their fighter in a better possible way. He moved up to 54. He couldn't make 47. They gave him some, middle of the road, and then they started stepping up the competition. That's how it should happen. Versus Eddie Hearn, he's going from a guy Boots already fought and beat to making that match again, and he looks worse in that match, to now going up to 54 to have to fight Virgil Ortiz, and he has 0 fights at 54, whereas Ortiz has 3. And, again, you guys do the math. The greats, like let's say Floyd Mayweather, he took 2 tough fights with Marcos Maidana before he fought Pacquiao. Smart. He fought his mandatory interim champion, a Mexican tough, durable fighter, Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Then he fought Canelo. So, of course, Guerrero is no Canelo, but he still brings a dynamic. He was a southpaw and he was durable. So, coming out of prison for Floyd Mayweather, that was a great fight for him to take and then fight Canelo, right? Instead of, again, coming out of prison after the Cotto fight and going straight into the Canelo fight. You got to make it make sense. So I like what Golden Boy has done for Virgil more than I like the way Eddie Hearn has moved Boots, because you're going from late replacement David Avocado at 47 that ends kind of abruptly and anticlimactic to a guy he already beat and probably underestimate, look worse against, and then that's the energy and momentum or lack thereof that you head into this Virgil Ortiz fight with, whereas Virgil Ortiz got the little gimme fights at 54 before fighting a real one in Boachuk, securing the WBC interim. So I think he's very prepared. He knows what it feels to take a punch at 154. And then I'm not talking about sparring, because we know sparring is different. And I think people underestimate how important that is. Like, same thing with Usyk. I mean, you guys could say, oh, Ego, you're cherry picking, you're scared. It's not about cherry picking or scared. I'm not scared. It's not my career. I'm just telling you boxing factually. You look at Alexander Usyk. He is an amazing fighter, one of my favorite fighters, right? He didn't go from Tony Bellew cruiserweight fights to Anthony Joshua. If he did that, maybe Joshua beats him, because there were moments where Joshua hurt him. What he did do is the smart thing, because Usyk is a smart man. Alexander Usyk knew he was making a big leap from cruiser to heavyweight. So what he did is he was supposed to fight Tyrone Sprong. He tested positive, popped dirty. So then they got Chaz Witherspoon, Tablespoon, and put him in there. And then he fought Derek Chisora. Then he fought Joshua, right? And now he's on to the bigger names, because he had 2 fights with Joshua, who's 6'6" and brolic. Then he fought Dubois and these other guys. And now he's like on to the Tyson Furies, who's considered, one of the top guys in the division. That's how you move a fighter, I promise you. So to be honest, shout out to Golden Boy for that. If Virgil Ortiz and Boots do fight next, they've put their fighter in the best possible position to, be comfortable for that fight. Versus Boots moving straight up to 54, Eddie Hearn hasn't given him that. If this was the game plan, you should have relinquished the belt with Karen Chukadze in a fight no one wanted to see, so we didn't even have to see that. If Boots was struggling to make weight, which it looks like he is, then why not just, if you guys have to understand what I'm saying, I'm the best in this business. Nobody is making it clearer than what I'm doing. Best in the business, and it's not even close. If you put up an abysmal performance with Karen Chukadze, then made excuses saying, hey, I'm moving up, I can't really make this weight anymore, you could have foregone that whole fight that no one even wanted to see, and Karen did better than he did in the first fight, and your stock dropped. You could have just omitted that whole fight, took a tune-up at 54, and then now maybe you're a bit more prepared for Virgil Ortiz at 154. So I look at the end game. If the end result was Jaron Ennis moving to 54 because he can't make weight or whatever, he should have made that decision on his own without putting up a subpar performance versus Karen Chukadasian and then going straight into a Virgil Ortiz fight. But hey, this is Riyadh season. This is Turkey. I'm just a man with an opinion, and I'm giving you my opinion on why it doesn't really make sense. Good fight, but now it becomes kind of do or die. You got to just learn on the job and figure out, oh, these guys are hitting harder at 54. Oh, I got to button up my defense. You got to figure it out versus Virgil Ortiz. He's able to figure it out with a lot less risk factor early on fighting Thomas Delorme. Delorme was basically like a lightweight 140-pound dude, and he was fighting at 154. So that wasn't no big fight, but you don't want to just move your fighter into it's like a student driver. You know how they have the behind the wheel training that we have to do to get a permit, at least in California? If you have a student driver, day one, you don't take them on the freeway. You dig? Now, it's not about, oh, I'm scared and I'm not a good teacher and all this stuff, because that's what some people are going to say when they hear what I'm saying. It's not about that. It's about readying your student and developing them. So you done some residential driving, you showed them how to park, you went to an empty parking lot, practice driving, and then, further along in the course, you give them the more advanced stuff like, now it's time to go on the freeway. You don't just go on the freeway the first 30 minutes of their first time behind the wheel ever. So I'm always going to advocate that for fighters. I don't think you should just move up and, necessarily fight the best person or top guy in the division without acclimating. Moving up in weight, you guys will see. Moving up in weight is a process. We unpack.